This is Peter Morosky, the nurse, and today I want to talk about on why Flash Thompson from the Amazing Spider-Man movies, played by Chris Zelka, is an underrated character that no one hardly talks about because he's the only live action Flash that I would consider great because he has actual proper character development, unlike the others played by Joe Manganiello from Spider-Man 1 and Tony Revolio in the MCU. While Chris Zelka's Flash starts out as a typical bully like Joe Magoli's does, we're introduced him when he's shoving a kid's head into something, and him wanting Peter to take a picture of it, and when Peter refuses to do so, Flash just beats him up when he doesn't. But over the time in the Amazing Spider-Man 1, he comes to regret treating Peter like crap in the course of the film. Of course, the turning point of this is after Uncle Ben is killed. I mean, if you after his uncle's killed, he goes back to school. You see all the other kids as kind of like avoiding Peter, and you would think Gwen or someone like that, or someone close to him, would be the first one to approach him and comfort him. But out of all the people to comfort Peter in this moment of need, Flash goes up to Pete. At first, Peter assumes Flash just wants to make fun of him again and say, like, "Ha, your uncle's dead" or some stuff like that. And Pete says Peter says he's not in the mood. He's not in the mood for Flash's freaking antics again. And Flash says he just wants to talk. And he holds on to Peter's shoulder, and Peter just grabs him and shoves him against the lockers. They're shocking everyone else. But Flash isn't shocked. Sure, he's taken off guard by how strong this nerdy kitty bully is. But Flash just says it must feel good to turn the tides on him. But after he says that, Flash kind of like gets a bit more gentle with his words and his voice, and he says, your uncle died. I'm sorry. And in a nice, sincere voice, and Peter just gently lets him down. It shows that Flash shows remorse for his actions. Does show remorse for his actions, and he stops picking on Peter after this, because if he continues to pick on Peter after this, like Flash sees how truly this would make him really pathetic. Yeah. And later towards the end of the film, it's revealed that when Gwen goes to Peter asking why he wasn't at the funeral, Gwen reveals that Flash showed up to her dad's funeral, Captain Stacy, who was killed by the lizard. Yeah, Gwen says that Flash showed up to the funeral to show his respects to Gwen, and how shows his respects to Gwen's father and what he's done for the city and how he died protecting the city. So. And then it's hinted that, well, not really hinted, but it's pretty much confirmed that Peter and Flash have become really good friends. By the end of the film, because if you watch the end of the film after that scene with Gwen talking about her dad's funeral with Peter, Flash goes up to Peter, and when Peter's going through his locker, you can see Flash comes up to him and Peter just Flash comes up to him and just goes like this, just hugs him from behind or something. And when Peter sees Flash's shirt, Peter says he likes Flash's shirt because it's a Spider-Man shirt. Because Spider-Man's become really popular at this point. They started making merchandise on Spider-Man, and of course, and just like in the comics and the Spectacular Spider-Man show, Flash becomes a huge fan of Spider-Man. And Flash says Spider-Man's cool, and the chicks dig him. And the deleted scene, and to be honest, I don't know why they deleted this scene, because it's a very well done scene. Like, it really shows how far Flash has come by this point at the graduation in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. And the deleted scene from the Amazing Spider-Man 2, after the graduation, Flash comes up to Peter and Gwen at the end of the graduation ceremony, and he expresses gratitude for them helping him with his homework, and saying he would not have graduated without their help. Really showing how Flash has gone from being just like a typical jackass and a bully to a really good friend for Peter and Gwen, and he actually just goes up and just gives Peter a big hug and all that kind of stuff, and just thanks him for his help, and Gwen as well. So this really shows how good he was, and how good he was. Now Joe, I have trouble saying the actor's last name. Joe Manganiello's Flash. I'm just gonna call him Joe from now on because his last name is a bit of a mouthful for me. Yeah, Joe's Flash doesn't have this development at all in the Sam Raimi trilogy. Like I've said before in some of my other videos, like when I was talking about Peter and MJ from Unlimited, I love the Sam Raimi films, especially the second movie. But this Flash is not that great. I mean, Flash has no development whatsoever. He literally only has a few scenes in the first film. You see him. You first see him on the bus with MJ and the only thing he does in this film is he bullies Peter, like you see in that opening scene with the bus, and he just laughs at Peter when he's running for the bus. Which by the way, if that was done in real life, that bus driver would have been fired. Like you don't do that. Like someone would have reported that, and that guy would have been fired. Anyway, and then laterwards, his other role is just to pick a fight with Peter because Peter just discovered his webs and he just pulled the fork off his webs and he shoots the webs on a train. He pulls it back and it hits Flash by mistake, and then Flash goes after him, picks a fight, and then acts like a tough guy. And this is where Peter's developing his powers in the film. He just picks a fight with Peter, and then. Basically, the whole point of the scene was just it showed how far Peter's come with his powers, like developing his powers, and how he doesn't have to take a beating from Flash anymore. And he just, of course, when Peter starts taking the fight a bit more seriously, he grabs and just punches Flash, and Flash goes flying backwards. He lands into a teach and gets some chocolate or food or whatever over his face. And then later in the film, he breaks up with Mary Jane Watson later in the film. Like that's it. That's all this Flash has in this trilogy. Like there's no development whatsoever. We actually never see him again after this. This is just pretty much it. He picks on Peter. He makes fun of Peter. Picks a fight with Peter. Gets beat up, and then breaks up with MJ at the graduation. Like that's it. Like there's no development there whatsoever. There's no him being a big fan of Spider-Man. There's no development with him becoming friends with Peter. There's just nothing there. Like the Spider-Man 1, I love Spider-Man 1. It's one of my favorite movies and one of my favorite superhero films, but it doesn't really do anything with Flash, and that's one of the things I kind of take back from that film. It's kind of it's really disappointing. Aside from Mary Jane Watson being terrible, like being terrible in that trilogy, unlike her comic book counterpart and her counterparts in Unlimited and the Spectacular Spider-Man show. Now as for Tom, as for Tony Revolio's Flash in the MCU is really weird because he's not, even though despite the fact that the Joe's Flash doesn't really have any development, he is what we expect of Flash, like a really big jock guy. You know what I mean? Like in pretty much all most versions of Flash, he is a big jock. Yeah, I give him credit for that, but Tony's Flash is really weird because he's not a big guy like the other two or any other Flash. He's just a scrawny kid who makes fun of Peter for a majority of this time and makes video posts most of the time. He just acts in Spider-Man in No Way Home. When Peter's identity is revealed, he starts. You see him. He's going through his phone. And he finds out Peter is Spider-Man, and then all of a sudden he just acts like Peter, like him and Peter are best friends when his identity gets revealed. Unlike Chris Zucker's Flash, who is a fan of Spider-Man too. Like he's a big fan. Like I said, he's a big fan. He becomes a fan of Spider-Man at the end of the first film. But he doesn't find we know he never finds out that Peter is Spider-Man. So he becomes a fan of Spider-Man, but he genuinely becomes friends with Peter, like just genuine friends. Like he doesn't need to pretend or anything. Unlike Tony's Flash in the MCU, who just makes fun of Peter, doesn't become friends with Peter at all, and just acts. And who's a big fan of Spider-Man, but then all of a sudden pretends to be Peter's friend when his identity is revealed as Spider-Man. Right. So, although. Despite that, I give Tony Revolio's Flash one credit. In Spider-Man: Far From Home, when this one guy, I can't remember his name, but when this one guy tries to basically sabotage Peter from getting his chances with Zendaya's MJ, and he actually followed Peter into the bathroom, and he tries to convince Peter how weird it is with Peter, and then when MJ points out how weird it is for him to follow Peter into the bathroom, and why is he following Peter into a bathroom? Yeah, and that Flash just basically just goes, yeah, yeah, dude, what's that about? Like, so he has a limit on how to make fun of Peter. He has a limit, and he is a fan of Spider-Man, but there's no real development there. But that scene, I did give him credit for that because yeah, yeah, like I said, he has a limit, and they goes yeah, following a guy into a bathroom or a toilet. That's just really weird. That's just really weird. Yeah, but like I said, he has no proper development, unlike Chris Zucker's Flash and Flash on the Spectacular Spider-Man show, which by the way, he's a great Flash. Although in that show, I do find it hypocritical at the end of this, in season 1, episode 12, where when Peter goes off on his friends, where he's wearing the symbiote, and how his friends are helping him, which I might make a whole video on this just want Flash, but basically Flash does make fun of Peter for a majority of that first season, like him throwing water balloons at his head and freaking trying to sabotage his date with MJ at the fall. So, and he goes how he basically says how Peter's acting like a jerk towards everyone else, which is really hypocritical when he does all this. But he does have proper development. He does get better as a character in season 2, as you see when he exposes Harry for using the green. But so, and that's I have to say, yeah. Yes, I again apologize for this. I've always had a stuttering problem. That's why I have to say Chris Zucker's Flash from the Amazing Spider-Man movies is a very underrated character, and he is the best Flash Thompson on screen aside from his counterpart in the Spectacular Spider-Man. And it's a real shame that it's a shame that these movies were cancelled when they did, because like I said, they could have done so much with this series. Like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, he's a big fan of the character. He's the best actor of the 3. Like, Tobey Maguire's my boy. He'll always be my favourite live-action Spidey, but Andrew Garfield is the best actor of the 3, and he's a really big fan of this character. It's a shame he couldn't go further with this. Like, I appreciate him being in No Way Home, but it'd been cool to see his universe be expanded. Like, him moving on from Gwen's death, and moving on to Mary Jane Watson, played by Shelley, I think her name is. I made a video on her, I can't remember her name. But anyway, besides that, it would have been cool to see how far Flash has gone from the Amazing Spider-Man 2 into the Amazing Spider-Man 3. Like, even if they did a Peter and MJ marriage in those movies, Peter could have asked him to be his best man at the wedding like he did in the comics, so that would have been really cool. And it's also a shame the Spectacular Spider-Man show was cancelled when it was, because we could have seen a similar development with him and with that Flash as well. Like, he could have been the best man at Peter and MJ's wedding, because it was confirmed that Peter and MJ would have gotten married in that series, in that show. But anyway, I think you guys get my point. Please like rewatch the. I know the Amazing Spider-Man movies aren't the best of Spider-Man films. I get that, but you got to admit they do have some great things going for it, like how they have the best live action superhero romance on screen with Peter and Gwen, played by Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. And Chris Tucker's Flash is really good. Like, he's the best, despite him not being in the best Spider-Man films. He is the best live action Flash of the 3, without question. It's not even in my opinion. I don't think anyone can argue it. It's not even a competition. Like, he is the best. He is the best live action Flash. So, please look at these. You don't have to watch the whole movie. Just watch the scenes just watch his scenes, and you'll see how much of a good character this actually is, and how it's a shame how the Amazing Spider-Man movies were cancelled, were cut short, and we never got to see more development from him. And also, if you want to know why Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson from Spider-Man Unlimited is also very underrated, or why MJ from the Spectacular Spider-Man is great, and most importantly, if you want to know the underrated live-action Mary Janes that people hardly talk about because they're so stuck on Kristen Dunst's version, please check out my videos on them on my channel. This has been Peter Morosky, the Nerd Star. If you like this, please like and subscribe. Thank you and have a great day.